and welcome to Growing Belleville Through Community Chats, a podcast presented by the Greater Belleville Chamber of Commerce to help highlight, promote, and enlighten people, businesses, and community events in the Greater Belleville area. Here are your hosts, Stephen Sedlak and Eric Huber.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Growing Belleville Through Community Chats. My name's Eric Huber. I think my co-host Stephen is on here today, but I'm not sure. Stephen, can you hear me, and are you good?
I am here. I don't know if good is the right answer here, but I am here. So, yeah, we'll get through this one any way we can.
Stephen's having a little technical difficulties, everyone. So hopefully, I think Zander and Brett here, they can hear me. So I just mentioned their names. We got two special guests on here today. Zander Mueth from Belleville East High School, who just recently was selected 67th overall with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then his longtime mentor, pitching coach, owner of Maximize Pitching Lab out of Collinsville, my little brother, Brett Huber. Guys, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Let's do this. All right. Good. No delays this time. We just had to cut off record. We had to stop and redo, so I'm glad we're back. So, Zander, hey, again, congrats. Pittsburgh Pirates, 67th overall, right out of high school, which is an amazing feat. So, first off, congrats to you. Kind of shows, I'm sure, just all the hard work and efforts you put into it. So, again, first thing, congrats. Draft. Let's go back to that Sunday night draft day, day one. What kind of emotions, thought process? How are you feeling on draft day?
I was feeling pretty good. I had people over at around like 5:30. So once people kind of started coming over, kind of just started hitting me. So I got a little bit nervous, and then at 6 o'clock, whenever the draft started, the nerves went up a little bit, and then they kind of chilled out for a little bit. I was kind of just walking around, like, talking to people, and then I think around, like, pick 35, 40, the nerves started hitting me because I was getting a couple calls from the Tigers at 45, ended up not going there, and then turning down a couple more teams in the 50s for under slot, and then, luckily we went to the Pirates at pick 67.
That's awesome. So calls are funneling in. I'm sure they're asking you questions, of course, money-wise. You signed Ole Miss, college aspirations. So I'm sure a lot of those discussions, were had pre-draft. But, as those phone calls are coming in, who's a part of those conversations? Is it the advisor? Is it Brett, your parents? Who's all in the mix there?
At my house, Brett. It was Brett, my dad, and I. And my advisor was obviously, he was in Seattle for the draft, so he was kind of mixing, like, kind of just getting calls to me.
Yeah, so Tigers had a couple teams call. So let's go to the phone call on Pittsburgh. So it was kind of later in the night, right? So were you kind of getting nervous, thinking maybe day one wasn't going to happen, or day two was?
Yeah, a little bit. My advisor told me a little bit before, like, around pick 55, I guess, and he was saying they couldn't get anything done the first night, but they had stuff on day two. So, I wasn't really worried about going on night one, but then, obviously, luckily it happened.
Well, that's awesome, man. Brett and I obviously, fortunately enough to get drafted, we didn't have that experience of multiple teams calling us. We just had the old fingers crossed someone was going to call us. So, Brett, what, like I said, you and I, we, awesome, two brothers getting drafted like that. We were a little different circumstance, like I said, just kind of hoping our name would come across the board at some point, which it did. But, how, you've been with Zander for a long time, helping him out on the pitching side of things. How was that for you, sitting there kind of going through that experience and seeing him, eventually accomplish kind of that ultimate goal?
He said he was nervous, and I tried as much as I could not to show him. You don't want to show a kid that you've known since 9 years old that you're probably just as nervous as him. So I try to keep emotions in check. There is 2 times Zander has a little loop outside of his house when, like he said, after 45, after the tires, and kind of we started getting in the 50s, we started taking a few walks because I think we needed to walk it off a little bit. But no, it was a special moment, seeing him with his family, everything that he's worked for. I haven't seen somebody that has worked as hard as Zander in the however many years I've been doing this as a pitching coach. Somebody who you give information to and he takes it and runs with it. So when it comes to the mobility programming and the strength programming and the pitching programming, there's attention to detail in every single thing that Zander does, knowing that it's going to get him better tomorrow. So all the hard work he's put in, seeing him give those hugs and a few tears with his family, and the excitement that they had, it was truly a special night.
We're going to try, see if, does everybody hear me okay? Is this working right?
Yeah.
I feel like Zoom days back from COVID. That's what you hear all the time. Well, at least we got to work. Anyway, Zander, everybody playing baseball that grows up, that's their dream, right? Getting drafted, and you kind of think about that stuff, going to the big leagues. At what point did you really start to, because let's be honest, everybody at some point, you either are with your level or that kind of is not an option. I mean, at what point did you really start to think that, hey, maybe this whole deal might really take off for me?
I think my sophomore year, or between the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I think everything kind of started clicking. I was getting invited to events, got invited to play with the Red Scout team in the fall, and then kind of just ran from there. Played really well with the Red Scout team, got invited to play with the Philly Scout team in my junior summer, and then kind of that was the start of it, my sophomore summer.
Well, I think, that's key too, Zander, and Brett, you, I think, hit it on the head there. Most kids have that aspiration, right? They want to play big leagues. They're in the backyard. They're pretending they're pitching, Game 7, World Series, hitting the home run, making the final out, strikeout, whatever. But you had summers. I heard you on an interview, I think, with, KSTK a couple months ago, maybe even last summer. I mean, you put the work in, and, kids have to realize that, yeah, there's special talents out there that I think, people just have natural ability. But I think Brett mentioned it. You had a good head on your shoulders. You put in the work. So maybe tell a little bit about kind of what you've all done throughout high school, the work ethic, what you did. Was it nutrition? Was it lifting? Obviously going to see Brett all the time. I mean, tell a little bit about how many hours you put into this.
It's been a bunch of hours. Most of the time I'm up at the facility for 5 hours a day, probably playing catch and then working out, making sure I'm getting my mobility in. But, obviously, like, growing up, it was pretty much just Brett, just kind of just doing pitches stuff. And then I think sophomore year, I kind of started to get into lifting weights and stuff. I got an advisor, and so got with his trainer that kind of works with their company. And, he helped me a lot. I gained a bunch of weight in the off season. Got with a nutritionist. She got me eating the right stuff. So, it kind of was just a 24-hour job, really just trying to figure out what, even just like the food I put into my body, how much weight I'm lifting, like being smart on the lifting side. And then obviously like seeing Brett like 2 or 3 times a week, just figuring out mechanics and, trying to throw hard.
I think what kind of goes to that's a good story too. So he mentioned that his advisor has a strength coordinator on his team, and he is currently in Cincinnati. So Zander would go to Cincinnati about once a month, and to show his hard work, he went to prom one night and woke up at 6 a.m. the next day to go to Cincinnati. So I think that shows the type of hard worker that he is and the motivation he had to make his dreams come true.
Yeah, that's impressive. I don't think 6 a.m. after prom, I was, yeah. I think after prom, 6 a.m., I was just going to bed. So that's impressive.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to say, Brett, you're viewing this from a different angle as well, because now you're in a different role than you were with, you and when you and Eric, even things like that. How has it been this time around for you, working with Zander, as more of a, if you want to say mentor role or whatever you want to say, as opposed to when you and Eric were kind of going through it?
Well, I think the game has changed too. So I'm very fortunate enough to kind of have the role that I have in a lot of these athletes' lives, including Zander. We didn't really have this whole training thing back in the day, my brother and I. There was no quote-unquote facilities. Yeah, exactly. So the information that baseball has been able to get from analytics, from biomechanics, it has been a huge thing for the game, and it's been able to grow. And I think we've seen that with the longer home runs, the harder hit balls, the pitchers throwing harder. So I fell in love with it. I was fortunate enough, somebody sent me to Nashville quite a few times to a gentleman named Lance Wheeler, and then Kyle Bodie as well with Driveline out in Washington. So I was fortunate enough to learn a lot from them. Playing in the SEC, I was able to learn a lot from the pitching coaches in the country. I'd run into them a little bit when I coached, and I fell in love with it. I have a passion for it. It's cool to see guys go through the same journey that my brother and I did. Growing up, for me, I looked up to my brother, so watching him play college baseball and watching him play professional baseball, he opened the doors for me, so kind of showed me the road to take, and I went in all gas, no brakes. So watching Zander, somebody that, now, like we kind of mentioned, I've trained him since he was 9, kind of like a little brother to me. So watching him go through that was really cool. A little different, like Eric said, than ours. We were just praying that we would get picked, but, Zander had about 12 teams going into the draft that were really high on him. So we were pretty positive that good things were going to happen that first night.
Yeah, you bring up, the analytics side, and I'm, it was very, very close to when I was playing, but kind of right after I was playing. I was still kind of that old school regime. We didn't really do too much analytics, wasn't involved in it. Obviously we had the video and stuff, but, how much of an advantage, Zander, do you think, having that coaching with Brett, having those numbers to really see how you were progressing, how do you feel about the analytics side of things, or how do you feel like it helped you?
I think it helped me a lot, just kind of, I guess, I'm 6'6", so, it's a lot of long limbs going everywhere. So kind of just being able to kind of look at the release height and stuff to make sure everything's kind of consistent there. And then obviously like velocity and the movement patterns of my fastball, just kind of looking at that stuff to make sure that it's progressing and not regressing. So just to kind of help me just kept getting better.
And that was, he kind of talked about it, and we can go into depth on that on the kind of like he said, the horizontal and vertical side of things. Zander was a guy that could really carry it his junior year of high school. And what I mean by that, it was probably 10 vert, anywhere from 18 to 20 horizontal. And Zander can tell you during that summer going into his senior year, and I don't think it was anything that was his fault. He was on the national circuit. We were seeing him once a week, but we were just kind of getting bullpens in. And I think he would agree it went from a fastball that carried to a demon sinker. So there was no vert on it. But he came to me and we talked about it. It was something we didn't want to change that summer because he's in the national showcase circuit, and you don't really want to mess with it that much. But quote unquote, you don't get as many swings and misses on demon sinkers. So a lot of scouts kind of talked to him, and we kind of talked about it to get that carry back. So what the Rapsodo did for us was it showed us that his fastball was changing, but we knew where his fastball was. So this past winter, we were able to work to get the fastball back to a fastball that had a little bit more life and a little bit more carry on it.
So, Xander, I guess you can look at this, I guess, two ways, right? Two journeys, right? Your journey up until now, and now your journey, going into Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts on, your journey moving forward now? Because it's going to be probably a totally different, maybe not a totally different, but a lot different than what you've been used to. I mean, what's the most important thing or thing that you're looking forward to the most going forward?
I mean, obviously, kind of just getting into the Pirates system. I mean, they've kind of flipped that whole organization, and I mean, their pitch and development side. I mean, they've had a bunch of high schoolers come through there and be really successful throughout their program. So, obviously, I'm really excited to get in there and see what they can do with me. Like, kind of just help my fastball, maybe help my mechanics get better. Just kind of being around the game just 24/7. I don't have to worry about school or anything like that. So, just kind of being able to play baseball whenever I want, and obviously just getting down at the facility down in Florida, so I get to play baseball year round in the heat.
Have you had any indication, talks with Pittsburgh, kind of where you might end up this summer? You staying down kind of in the Florida area down to spring training, or they gonna send you out to a team, you think, this summer?
I think they said that they're taking it really slow with me, so I think I'm just gonna be down in Florida for the rest of the year, and then obviously just kind of next year to see where I'm at coming out of like the spring training, I guess.
Yeah, that arm is worth more to the Pittsburgh Pirates right now than it is to Zander Mueth, my friend.
Yeah. Eric, Xander talked quite a bit about Bradenton. We all know you played for the Pirates. How was your experience down in Bradenton, Florida?
Bradenton was awesome. And they completely renovated their spring training facility now. So I have not been down since leaving Bradenton, but I know it's a major hall, redid the whole outfield and everything. Pittsburgh was great. I mean, Zander touched on it. You got to be kidding me. Fire alarm going off here.
Man, this isn't the best podcast you'll ever be on, Zander. Out.
Something like, dude.
So far.
And, here, I'll put it on mute. Go to the next question. Cut that one out.
You're good. Well, I will say this. Have you been to Pittsburgh? Have you been to their stadium, the Major League Stadium before?
No.
I'm sure you see it on TV who hasn't, but I mean, it's a beautiful stadium. I've been to Pittsburgh a few times. It's a great town to begin with. It's a very underrated town, in my opinion. But that ballpark, I mean, I'm a huge Cardinals fan, so of course, Busch Stadium's near and dear to my heart, but that stadium is absolutely beautiful. It's a great setting to be in. Are you going to, I'm ignorant here, so bear with me, but, are you going to be able to venture out and go to Pittsburgh at all and see a game, anytime or anything like that before you get up there? I mean,
I don't know yet. My advisors said that I might sign up in Pittsburgh, but we don't know yet about that.
Okay. All right. So then you're going down to Florida to start, training and all that stuff. I guess there's worse places to be, especially when it gets cold up here. So
yeah,
you are looking forward to be down there year round for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, I can be down there year round. Obviously, I'll probably come back. Get a couple weeks in, like at the end of November and stuff, to work with Brett. But I mean, most of the time, I'll probably be down there for the warmth.
Okay, Brett, are you? What's your? I mean, is your role going to change at all? I mean, I'm sure it will to a degree, but are you going to be working with him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when he's home, I just can't wait to hear the assessments that he's going to go through, what he's working on. I'm sure they're going to get pretty deep into the pitch design, so I'm excited to hear those things. These guys are professional pitching coaches that are there, that are working with Zander, so you kind of have to take that when he comes back. Hey, what are you working on? What are you doing to try to get better? Or what's been the focus lately? And you just kind of continue to work on that. So I think my role now is just kind of like it always has been, just be there for Z. I'm sure if he needs to reach out about anything or talk, and I mean, I'm sure he'll probably get annoyed by me texting him every once in a while just because I'm like, what's going on? So roles will definitely change, but the relationship's always going to be there.
Zander, have you, has it really sunk in? I know we're, 5 days, so since the draft was, but has it really sunk in yet? Or do you think it's going to sink in more once you're signing the paperwork and signing, or, and down in the system?
Yeah, it really hasn't sunk in yet. Obviously, I still do the same stuff I've been doing since even before I got drafted. So obviously, I go to the facility every day at the same time pretty much. So it still hasn't sunk in on that part. But sometimes during the day, it'll just hit me for like a minute and then kind of just go away. But once I probably sign that paperwork, it probably will change.
Yeah, so I'll go back, I guess, with the Pittsburgh organization, Z. I think they were unbelievable. Now, the regime, I think, is obviously front staff. It changed a little bit since I've been there, but
It's all right. I can edit that out. Keep going.
but I will say Pittsburgh is one of those organizations that takes care of their players. Coaches are always asking about how you are, how your family is, what's going on back at home, especially with someone like yourself, the high school kids who, let's be honest, but you've been away a little bit summer playing ball, but a lot of those high school kids, they played summer ball at their high school. They never left their hometown, and now they're, thousands of miles away traveling on a bus and not knowing what in the world is going on. So it's key. It was a great organization. Some of the coaches, I'll have to text you. Some of the minor league coordinators are still with them. I'll have to let you know which ones to go say hi to and latch on to, because if there's any advice, those are, Brett probably tell you the same thing. It's, latch onto those coaches, put your, get ready to go, put your cleats on, fire away, get to work, put your head down, lead the way. Because like I said, they picked you 67th for a reason. They want you to lead that organization at some point. So, start day one and show them. But that would be my only thing is, like I said, Pittsburgh was a great organization. I'm excited that you get a chance to see it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't want to say ironic, but kind of cool the fact that, you worked with Brett, and here we are, Eric, was with Pittsburgh as well too. So it's kind of a cool connection.
Well, I think so, Steven, I don't know if I showed you the picture, but obviously he gets drafted by the Pirates. Brett's with them, and I think what'd you do? Text mom and dad, and he told them to grab all the Pirate gear that they had sitting in their basement and bring it to the house so they could start taking some pics.
Yeah.
See,
Their leader already, like you said, Zander already had a hat, like you said. Last summer he played at East Coast Pro Showcase, and his team was the Pittsburgh Pirates, ran by the Pirate Scout. But yeah, mom and dad came over. So how I started training Zander, Craig, his father, and my dad are both from the Shriners, and they've been really close. So that's how that relationship started. And Craig told Terry, our father, that if he went, get on over. The cool thing was he got to come over with all his Pirates gear on. So it was
he threw on that
flashback seeing them with their Pirate gear on, and then Zander wearing Pirates. It was really cool because, like I said, I looked up to Eric and get to see him a lot in the Pirate uniform. So it was special all around.
Now, was it a Pirates jersey with Huber on the back? Was it an Eric's jersey?
It was the circa 2008 spring training Pirate polo. I don't even think it was dry fit. I think it was straight
cotton.
Oh, man.
Zander actually just sent me the other day, he got a deal with Rawlings, so he gets 2 gloves every year. So he's trying to figure out his gloves right now.
Absolutely.
Going alligators or crocodile skin. It's nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
See, the biggest thing with those contracts is you gotta try to get them to give you the extra money for non-baseball stuff. A couple of guys I played with, that's what I had a Wilson golf set for years, and one of my buddies it was a Wilson contract, but he was able to spend like $5,000 or $10,000 outside of baseball. and he never used it. And one summer he was just like, Huber, we're buying you some golf clubs. I was like, sounds good, because I signed for jack squat. I can't pay for these things. He's like, come on, man, we're ordering. So he ordered me a bag, iron set, putter. I mean, the whole deal. So yeah, speak to Rawlings. Tell him to, you can send Brett and I like a Matthews over.
Zander actually just bought his some new golf clubs the other week, but he hasn't been able to play with them. The rule was he had to make this happen first before he can play again. What kind of glove you get, Z?
Tailor-made driver, Mizuno irons, and then I got a Scotty Cameron putter.
I have.
Yeah, jeez.
Isn't Scheffler, doesn't he have like every brand of golf club in his bag?
Yeah, he's got a lot.
Oh, that's cool, man. Well, hey, we got a couple minutes here. Want to be respectful of your time. I just want to, again, kind of go back to growing up, now high school. Let's touch a little bit. Like to give, obviously Belleville East a little shout out here growing up. So tell us a little bit, just your time with Belleville East, baseball team there, the school, Belleville in general, was your time there, enjoyed it? Tell us a little bit about kind of that upbringing in Belleville East.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Belleville East is great. I mean, I've been going to camps there for, forever. So I got to know Coach Wiggs I've known him for a while, since about 2015, whenever he got hired, because my mom's a teacher there. So once I got here freshman year, I feel like everybody kind of, it was just great. I had really good relationships with everybody. We had Drew Gray, Evan Gray whenever I got here. So just kind of learning from them my freshman year, even though it got canceled, I still got to learn a little bit from them kind of before March 13th. And then, coming back my junior year, we had a really good team. We had a bunch of guys that had a lot of fun. So, I had a lot of fun on the field with them. And then, this year, obviously, the team was outstanding. We had 3 other D1 guys, a D2 guy, and a JUCO kid. So, it's just kind of the team that we had this year was really fun, just kind of learning from everybody, just kind of seeing where their careers are going to go also.
Yeah. And I was, because really with your status was, obviously a little bit different than everybody else's, how supportive were they with, and Brett, maybe you can touch on this too. How good were they to work with, the East coaches and East school with, obviously limiting your pitches, not being able to just go out there and throw complete games all the time and tear your arm up. So, I'm assuming they were pretty supportive with that, right?
Yeah. Brett, obviously, he talked to Coach Wiggs last year about pitching, and then he kind of gave it off to my advisor this year. But, he kind of respected both of them, he's smart, so he didn't want to tear up my arm. So, obviously, he was great about the pitch counts and kind of sticking to it. And so, even if I ended with 50 pitches and my pitch count was 55, if I ended up not going the full way, he was still perfectly fine with that. So, he was great with it.
Brett, same thing?
I was just going to touch.
Yeah, no, Coach Wiggs was great this year. Same with his pitching coach at Belleville East. This is kind of a generational type of thing, and they understood kind of what could happen, and they were great with Z about it, and everybody else around. So we couldn't thank them enough.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quickly that I think Belleville sports in general are just in a good spot especially from District 201, even from out top everywhere. You got EJ Legel that just signed his contract with the Pelicans. There's Zander going. I think it's kudos to the talent and commitment that not only the districts have around here, but the community in general has as well.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, Zander, good luck. I said coming up on 30 minutes. Really appreciate you coming on. Kind of short notice getting on here, seeing how your experience was. So good luck with everything. Hopefully you don't have to live on the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for too long, make that a priority to get out of the minors as fast as possible. So no, congratulations. I know you were you worked your tail off, obviously listening from Brett the last couple of years especially. So hard work paid off, and congrats again, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bub,
Yep.
little bro, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Nope, absolutely. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah,
And
thanks for dealing with all of our technical difficulties that we have here. So, Zander, hopefully your podcast career of being guest only goes up from here.
Hopefully.
Yeah. You had to make sure we get you on your first podcast with us and get all this out of the way, and then, you know, a couple years down the road. Yeah. A couple years down the road when you're in that All-Star game, you can talk about, yeah, you know, I was on this first podcast, and it was just gone all.
That's it. Well, thanks again. Congratulations to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Growing Belleville Through Community Chats podcast. Please remember to follow and subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends and community leaders. For additional information from this podcast, please reach out to the Greater Belleville Chamber of Commerce.